Hi, it's Millie here from Millie Does Yarn, and today we are going to be talking about AI. Is it something that could actually be helping us with our projects, or is it something that's destroying the industry? That's what I want to explore today, and the way we're going to do that is firstly looking into the problems that AI is causing, and why are these things problems? We're going to look at the unrealistic expectations set by AI in terms of knitting and crochet. And we're also going to look at things like AI patterns. Are they a good thing, or are they ruining the creativity of the knitting and crochet world? I also want to research more and dive into the issues that surround copyright, especially with AI patterns and AI designs, and figure out, is that something that is bad, can be solved, and essentially what is it going to look like going forwards for the craft community? We're going to talk about the morals of using AI in crafting. And finally, we are going to test an AI pattern versus a pattern that I've written myself and see, is it really up to scratch? So without further ado, let's dive in. So the first thing I want to address here is AI generated images of knit or crochet items. Now, like most crafters, I'm sure you've spent time on Pinterest, and if so, you will have come across these AI images. Now, it is so frustrating when you find a pattern of something and you see it and you think, oh, I'd love to make that. And then you click on it and you go, hang on a minute, is this even real? But how much of an issue actually is this? Well, I'm going to test this right now by going onto Pinterest and searching up for a pattern. So let's type in, since it's nearly Christmas, we're going to go for Christmas crochet patterns. Here's one I'm almost certain is made with AI. Reason being, just look at the way the baskets are like perfectly in focus and everything else is perfectly out of focus, yet the baubles on the tree kind of sit very full frontal on the tree. Now, it could be that I'm wrong, but when you start to have patterns where you're questioning whether they're real or not, that's where problems kind of arise. Again, looking at a lot of these, like these for example, are they real? It could just be the mock-up of the background that makes it feel not real, but something like this, I'm going to go with this being 100% not real. Look at that hand. The finger, it's got like a lump where you wouldn't have a lump, but the row of single crochets in the white on the top of the basket are almost balancing on top of the red. If you look, the stitches aren't even like integrated together, they're just floating. Why is this problematic? I think for me, it's just frustrating more than anything. And I think a lot of people probably feel the same, that you see a pattern like this and you go, oh, I want to make that. And then you click on it and you're like, I now don't trust that this is going to be real. But there could well be a perfectly good pattern in there that will make that item. We don't know that, but it does just give you that element of distrust. So that's something we're going to dive into a little bit later. The biggest concern I have around unrealistic expectations set by AI patterns is, firstly, am I going to try and make this thing and then end up with something completely different and essentially have wasted my time? But secondly, am I also going to have wasted my money paying for a pattern that isn't actually what it says it is? I think it's nice when you see an image and you get excited about making it. So to then sort of take that away from somebody and waste both their time and money, I don't think is particularly fair. However, of course, we are just speculating at this point. There's no good reason that we know of just yet that, until you buy the pattern, it could be absolutely fine. And that's the difficult thing as well. A lot of the images I've come across on Pinterest might be using AI as a background or as a backdrop mock-up for their images. And that's what gives everything kind of an AI feel as a whole. So it really is a difficult fine line. Where AI patterns tend to pop up a lot are places like Etsy, where you see books full of 1,500 patterns or more. Now, that immediately raises concerns for me because I'm thinking, I know how long it takes to write and test a pattern. No way is somebody creating 1,500 amigurumi patterns, testing them all, writing out the instructions in a way that can be understood, and then creating a book out of it. It has to be AI, right? But are those patterns all going to be correct? It doesn't feel very promising. If that 1,500 pattern book was 100% correct, would I have a problem with it? I don't know, because it does feel like it's taking away from the creative minds and people that put so much hard work into producing 5, 10, 20 patterns for their shop. But at the same time, from a consumer's perspective, everybody always wants a good deal. Is it so wrong to make a craft more accessible in terms of pricing? I don't know. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. So what can we do to ensure that patterns are good and the ones that we're buying are actually going to make what we want? Well, that's something I'm going to talk about a little bit later on. So the real big issue that I wanted to talk about today, and that I've researched into to try and spread a bit more information about what's actually happening here, is copyright infringement. Now, a lot of people have concerns surrounding AI, and especially around stuff that they have designed being copied. So I wanted to dive deeper into this to figure out what's actually happening, what is AI doing in terms of copying people's patterns, and how can it be avoided going forwards. Editing Millie here. Now, I wanted to actually add something to this before I go in and talk about copyright and the use of AI. The thing I'm about to talk about is using AI to generate patterns in general, and whether that is okay or not, and the issues that surround that. But one thing I didn't mention is explicitly using AI to copy a particular pattern and reproduce it to sell as your own. So this is something I've seen done where somebody will take an image of a real product that a real creator has designed and crafted, run it through AI and basically say, fix this, make it look nicer, and they will reproduce exactly the same image, but maybe just tidied up a little bit, and then say, great, make me a pattern of that. And then they will either sell the pattern that the AI has created using the AI generated image, or resell the actual pattern that the original creator made with the AI image. I just want to make my thoughts on this clear. That is absolutely wrong. There is no way you should be doing that. You are literally just ripping off the original creator there, selling something that is theirs when you shouldn't be, or doing a knockoff version of their product that isn't even going to create what you want in the first place. So I just thought it was important to share that, because I think actually that was an important point to add. But let's now go back and talk a little bit more about just using AI in general to create patterns and design products. So the first thing that I did is research into where does ChatGPT get its information from. Now, I've only researched specifically on ChatGPT. It's the AI I am most familiar with using, so I can only really speak for that. But there are essentially three places that ChatGPT gets its information from. The first is licensed data sets that have been provided for it to learn from. For example, if you said, right, here's the dictionary ChatGPT, like this is a book that everybody can read it so you know what the words mean. The second thing is publicly available information. So for example, a website that's available for everybody. ChatGPT has been able to learn from those data sources. The final thing is human trainers, where an expert sat down and has said, right, I'm going to teach you all you need to know about this very specific thing. Would crochet and knitting have been on that list? I'm going to say probably not, but there's a potential for that to be the case. What does that mean ChatGPT and other AI models can access? Well, it means that things like free patterns published on blogs, absolutely, yes, it can access and read those, the same as anybody else on the internet would be able to do. Can it access paid patterns that are locked on websites such as Etsy or Ravelry? No, it can't. The only way it would be able to access a paid pattern is if somebody purchased it first and then published it. Now, it's a very interesting question of who is in the wrong there. Is it the AI language model that has used that piece of content, or is it the person that published it? Now, this is where things get a little bit interesting, because if I were to buy and then publish a paid pattern and a human used it, that would absolutely have been my fault. I shouldn't have shared that pattern. So how can we blame something like ChatGPT for taking something that it finds on the internet, that shouldn't even be there in the first place? Is that down to the person that wrongly published the pattern in the first place? Is that down to the creators of things like ChatGPT to put safeguards in place? But also, how would they do that? It's a really difficult thing when you start thinking of it in more depth of actually, if it's taking people's patterns, where is it getting them from? One answer to that is it could be using images and recreating them. For example, let's say we want to make a jumper. We search on Etsy, jumper. Thousands of people's lovely patterns come up, and ChatGPT looks at them all and goes, great, that's my inspiration. It copies, and I'm putting in quotes here, it copies those images to kind of come up with a new idea for a jumper and writes a pattern based on the fact that it knows that, right, this combination of stitches makes a square, whatever. Is that a copyright infringement? Well, let's take a look at what the law in the UK actually says about this. Now, I think it's important to note that this copyright law applies whether you are an AI language model or whether you're a human. So UK copyright law would automatically copyright the contents of a written pattern. So the wording itself, any diagrams you've created, and the contents of what's inside that PDF that you've written. What would not be copyrighted would be the idea of that specific product. So say a blue and white stripy jumper. Where the line is crossed is a little bit different than where a lot of people think it might be. So if you or an AI were to see a picture of a jumper, let's say on Etsy, and you decided to try and recreate that yourself, you didn't buy the pattern and you just said, right, okay, well, I know how to make the body. I know that the idea of 2 sleeves is going to be 2 long rectangles, and I'm going to try and recreate that look. That would actually not be a breach of copyright, from my understanding. You could even then take your recreated idea, rewrite it into a pattern, and sell that if you wanted to, as long as you were not using the photos from the original pattern or trying to pretend it was that pattern in the first place. I want to talk about the line here between what's legal and what is ethical, because I think that's actually where a lot of the debate crosses over. Is it legally allowed to recreate your own version of something and then sell it? Yes, if that thing is not trademarked in itself, like a brand name, and you have truly created that design yourself by, your own knowledge of stitches and crafting, then yes. However, this is really where the ethics question comes in. Is it okay to do that? Is it okay to have taken somebody else's idea that they've spent their time and hard work coming up with and then just make it your own? Now, I think there are 2 sides to this coin, in that one could argue that if you didn't have the skill in the first place, you wouldn't even be able to recreate something. But in the same vein, somebody else's own creative idea, you've essentially scrapped the creative section and gone, I'm just going to copy that. This is where the moral dilemma comes in, because ChatGPT doesn't have that moral compass, right? As humans, we kind of know, okay, if someone's put their hard work and effort into this, I'm not going to just copy it and make it my own. ChatGPT doesn't necessarily know that, and this is where things get difficult. So we have to remember again that so much of the thinking that a large language model does, like ChatGPT, is similar to how a human would think. For example, if I want to go and design a pattern, what information am I using for that? Well, I'm using my own knowledge of stitches and combinations of stitches that create different patterns. And also I'm going to take inspiration from things I've seen in the past. So for example, if I want to design a plushie of a reindeer, I can't suddenly wipe every image of a reindeer plushie that I've ever seen in my life from my brain. They're there. And although I'm not going to directly think, right, I'm going to copy this person's pattern, of course, my creative mind will have taken inspiration from things I've seen, whether they've been crocheted, knitted, a stuffed toy in a shop, a real life reindeer. We take the collection of experiences we have to create a new idea. And that is essentially what AI does when you ask it to generate a pattern. Now, what's the difference between a human doing it and something like AI? I'm not 100% sure where I fall on this. I'd be really interested to know your thoughts on how does that differ? And is it right? Is it wrong? I'm not sure. Now, one thing this does all come back to is AI actually useful in knitting and crochet? Because it's all well and good discussing the morals of it, but if it's never going to be useful in the first place, what's the point? Maybe we should just scrap it. Let's actually dive into whether an AI pattern can be of any use or not. Now, to make this a fair test, I'm going to give myself the same instructions as I give ChatGPT to create a pattern. So the prompt we're using is, please generate an image. So we're going to get it to make an image first, and then from that image, create the crochet pattern. Now, I've already designed mine, which I'll show you in just a second. So I did it so that I wouldn't be influenced by whatever ChatGPT does. So the prompt we're using is, please generate a crocheted coaster of Santa Claus. It can use any of the following colors: bright red, white, light pink, and black. It does not have to use all of the colors. It should be made using a 4mm crochet hook and DK weight yarn. So let's go ahead and press go and see what happens. Okay, so we can see it's generating our image. Now I'm very interested to see what it comes out with. I really hope it's something fun, but who knows? I am a little concerned that this is like maybe a little thinner than DK, but honestly, it's what we had in the stash, so it's what we're working with. Woohoo, we have detail. Okay, so we have our little white pom-pom on the top. We have the red for the hat. Okay, kind of cute actually. Looking at this image, obviously it's just made of a circle, which is great. I'm trying to figure out how it's done, like the hat. It's almost, I don't fully think that makes sense, like in terms of how crochet works, because clearly the face is a circle, right? But then it's almost like the edge of his head just got chopped off. They like crocheted across to make the band and then added on the hat, which is fine. You can obviously add on the hat, but where's the rest of his face gone? Where did his forehead go? Is the hat on top of that? I don't know. Now, let me show you my design now. So this is something that I designed prior to doing that. It's kind of a similar vibe, but I wanted to add in the mustache because I just thought that made it look like a little jolly Santa. And obviously we've got the hat as well. So my plan is to start off with just a basic circle, do some extra stitches around to make the beard kind of come out. I might do like some little frilly edges, we'll see. And then, oh, my light just died. And then the hat, again, we'll do the circle base first, do the last round of the circle or half of it with the red, and then build on top of that to make the hat shape. So that's my design and that's how I plan to make it. Let's see what ChatGPT says about how we can actually make this Santa that it's designed. So let me ask, thank you, please can you generate a crochet pattern to make this exact image? Okay, so here's a full crochet pattern to recreate the exact Santa Claus coaster shown. So we've got the yarn that we suggested, fine, a 4mm hook, got all these things. 10 centimeters big. Yeah, that seems like a reasonable size. So we've got some abbreviations. This is all looking kind of standard, nothing crazy. So it's saying single crochet. Was the image single crochet? Yeah, it looks that way. Okay, make a circle. So we are making a full circle based on that. He has got a forehead. It's just hidden. Okay. Wait. The beard. So we do one round of beard that goes the whole way around his head. Okay. And then round 8, fasten off after about 2/3 of the round. This leaves the top clear for the hat. Yeah, I'm not fully convinced by this pattern, but we're going to make it. We're going to see. Alrighty, it is time to give this AI pattern a go. I will keep you updated along the way and see how it goes. As I said, I am suspicious that it may not turn out as suspected, but we will see. So something interesting I've just noticed while doing this says magic ring, 6 stitches in the magic ring, which I've done. Lovely job. But it doesn't say anything about slip stitching to the top of the next round. Now, I would normally just do that and then do the round, but it just kind of says, pull it tight, crack on. So I am going to follow this pattern to the T. There's nothing about like rounds. It sort of seems to just be in a spiral. So I'm not going to slip stitch and I'm just going to go with it essentially and see what happens. One thing I've also realised about this pattern is because it doesn't move where the increases are, we are going to end up with a hexagonal Santa. Normally, if I was doing something in a round like this for like a big enough amount of time, I would stagger where the increases are so that we don't have a hexagonal circle. That is not about to be 10 centimetres. It's like 4 maybe. So this could be a really tiny coaster, but we'll see. Wait, but it told me to fasten off and weave in the ends, and I definitely could have just changed colour. But hey, okay, join white yarn into any stitch. Let's see how this goes. Okay, we did the first round of white, all fine. And the next line of the instruction is where I start to not love this pattern. If we forget about the fact it's a hexagon and the fact he's got a beard that goes round his entire face. The next line of the pattern says single crochet in each stitch around. So first of all, to me immediately that says that the edges are going to curl. But then it says fasten off after about 2/3 of the round. This leaves a clear top for the hat. So I assume it means this round. I don't love the fact it's saying about 2/3. The mathematician of me is like, I need to calculate that. So that's going to be 28 stitches that I need to do. But like, what do you mean? Just fasten off and be done with it. So it wants me to stop here and fasten off to then do the hat around the top. Hasn't actually curled up like I thought it would, or as much anyway. I mean, I am flattening out a bit here. I think because I haven't done the top yet. Sorry, we have to check back in on this pattern. So I joined the red yarn and it says single crochet across 12 stitches, chain 1, turn. Now, if we look back at the pattern, the photo about how the hat goes, like in theory that would be here, and then we're like building on top of it, which is fine. But then let's just carry on and look at what the hat goes on to do, just so we're sure. Then you're decreasing. This is fine, but it wants me to single crochet across 12. But like, where's my 12? We've finished the hat. I think we can be honest here and say this is not the same as what it looked like. This is clearly worked in rows. The picture clearly shows working in rounds. And also because of how we joined here and we didn't do any more increases, it's kind of bunching the circle together. And as I said earlier, it's kind of now starting to roll up a little bit. The next part, which let's see. Oh, it's the trim of the hat. And I really don't understand how they want us to do this, but we're going to try. Join the white yarn along the bottom edge of the hat. So right now we have the yarn here. So I assume it's meaning like here, right? Fine, happy. Then it says, work 1 row of single crochet evenly across. Fasten off and weave in ends. Now, I assume it means like 1 row across here. I'm not saying this is by any means good, but this little rim did actually come out better than I expected. Maybe I'll do another video where I try and fix this pattern, but that will perhaps come in the future. So we've got the hat band. Let's see what's next. So next it wants me to do the pom-pom. So it's literally just a magic circle and then 6 stitches and we're done basically. Pom-pom complete. Here he is with his little pom-pom. I mean, I won't lie. It is recognisably Santa Claus. He's finished. Welcome to AI Father Christmas. Now, what do I have to say about this? I mean, first of all, I think potentially the yarn actually could have done with a smaller size hook, which is not ChatGPT's fault. That was set by me, but I will make mine out of the same hook so that we can have a fair comparison. Second of all, the idea on the hat band was actually, in my opinion, kind of close to what it needed to be. I do think it worked way better than I expected, and it did just need another row. However, we do have to talk about the hat itself, which is just not the same as what the pattern described. What did the pattern look nice on the image? Yes, but the pattern that they made makes a triangle. It does not make a hat in the round, as they said. Would I be mad if I had purchased that pattern and came out with this? Yeah, I think I would. Would I be mad if I saw this and then purchased the pattern in itself and got this? No, because the pattern was actually fine to follow. I don't think it was written with the best crochet practices in mind, but it worked and it's produced a little guy. With that all done, let's go ahead and create my version and see how that goes. So I've made a start on my version of Santa, and I just wanted to let you know that we don't have to give up hope as crochet creators after all. I think we're probably not going to lose our jobs to AI patterns anytime soon. Needs to flatten out a little bit, but we've got his beard. This is like the pink of his face, and then the start of his hat, which obviously I'm going to continue outwards, but we haven't got there yet. I am pretty pleased with how it's looking so far. I'll show it side by side once I've finished with the AI created version, but I just think it's little things, even like knowing that double crochet rather than single crochet would look better on something like this, or thinking about like the construction of the hat rather than just being like, oh well, we'll just stick it on at the end, that make the difference. So I'm quite excited to see how this comes out. That's how things are going so far. I will update again once I've got the finished little Santa. So we've skipped a couple days into the future. I was visiting some family when I was finishing off this project, and the evening just ended up getting really busy. So I did finish off my version of Father Christmas. Let's take a look at how he came out. This was my design. We've got a circle for the face. I added on kind of an extra layer here of double crochets for the beard, and then a little funky detail with the hat. It's kind of essentially just an extra layer of double crochets again, and then some few different height stitches to create the shaping on the top, and then a little mustache and also just some little half circle eyes to make him look like he's a happy guy. Now, I'm actually really pleased with how this came out. It looks a lot crisper and a lot cleaner than I thought it would, but overall I think it looks like it was supposed to. Let's just compare against the original design. I think I managed to create what I wanted, which I'm quite pleased about. Now, let's compare to our little AI guy. I'm going to be totally honest, he's not really doing it for me. I think the image that was generated by AI, if the pattern had actually made that, would have been quite cool. But when we look at him, it really just isn't at all what the picture was trying to create. So now that we've done this experiment, what do I take from this overall about AI and its place within crochet and knitting design? Well, I think that AI is a tool, like any other tool on the internet, and the internet included. It's down to the user to decide how it should be used in a responsible way. And that comes down to your own morals, ethics, and sense of being a good person. Do I think you should actively use AI to copy somebody else's pattern or product? Absolutely not. Do I think it's a useful tool in helping you conceptualize an idea? Yes, absolutely. But responsibility is on everybody in the community, not just involving AI, to not share things that shouldn't be shared publicly and to use the tools that are out there responsibly and, just be a good person with what you're doing. What I will say though is, will I be buying any AI patterns? Absolutely not. I think it's got a long way to go before we can feel confident that something produced with AI is actually going to produce something that is worth making. I'd love to know what you think and what your opinions are on the use of AI in crafting. Let me know in the comments below and maybe we can discuss them in a future video.